The viewing deck of Celestia Prime stretched across 300 meters of transparent aluma steel, offering an unobstructed panorama of the planet below. Earth turned slowly in the darkness, its blue-green surface mottled with swirls of white cloud formations that seemed almost too picturesque to be real. Lyria stood at the glass, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of continents and oceans, her long ears catching the ambient light from the station's bioluminescent ceiling panels. "You cannot be serious about this." Her brother Kale's voice carried that particular tone of exasperation he perfected over his 217 years. He materialized beside her, having taken the express transit pod from the residential sector. His formal merchant robes shimmered with embedded credit displays, each thread broadcasting his latest transaction victories to anyone within visual range. Lyria didn't turn from the window. "I've already filed the expedition protocols with the Cultural Observation Bureau. They approved it yesterday. The Bureau approves anything if you pay them enough." Kale's ears flattened slightly against his skull, a gesture of profound disapproval. "Do you understand what you're proposing? To walk among them as one of their destitute? The homeless creatures who sleep on their streets like discarded refuse? That's precisely the point." Lyria finally looked at him, noting how his 3 rings of status glowed against his fingers, each one worth more than most Earth nations' annual budgets. "I want to see how they treat those they consider worthless. How they respond when there's nothing to gain." Kale laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "I can tell you that right now and save you the trouble. They'll step over you. Ignore you. Humans only help when there's something in it for them, a recording for their social platforms, a tax deduction, a moment of feeling superior. Their entire civilization runs on transaction and spectacle. You've never even been to Earth. I've studied their broadcasts. I've analyzed their economic patterns. I've watched their news feeds." He gestured toward the planet with one ring-laden hand. "They're fascinating in their primitive complexity, I'll grant you that, but don't romanticize them. They're barely 3 steps removed from their own evolutionary predators. All teeth and territory, dressed up in synthetic fabrics and pretending it's civilization." Lyria's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Mother said you'd try to talk me out of it." "Mother said," Kale stopped, his ears perking upright. "You told Mother?" "She suggested I make it a thesis project. Academic legitimacy and all that." Lyria pulled a small device from her pocket, no larger than her thumbnail. The biomimetic projector hummed with potential energy, its quantum processors already programmed with her chosen human appearance. "She even helped me requisition the good equipment. The kind that won't glitch if someone bumps into me." Her brother stared at the device with something approaching horror. "That's a military-grade mimetic field generator. Those are restricted technology. Mother has connections." Lyria turned it over in her palm, watching light play across its surface. Apparently one of her clients in the defense sector owed her a favor. Something about a mining rights dispute on one of the Kelver moons. Kale was quiet for a long moment, which was unusual enough that Lyria looked at him again. His ears had drooped, and his expression had shifted from irritation to something closer to concern. "You could get hurt down there. Really hurt. They have violence, Lyria. Unpredictable, chaotic violence. Not like our controlled sporting events or sanctioned duels. Random acts of cruelty." "I know. Do you? Have you actually watched the footage from their street-level cameras? I'm not talking about their entertainment media or their carefully curated documentaries. I mean the real feeds. The assault statistics. The survival desperation in their poverty zones." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "Their poor don't just struggle, sister. They die. Regularly. From exposure, from starvation, from violence, from diseases we eradicated 3,000 years ago." Lyria met his gaze steadily. "That's why I have to go. If they're really as terrible as you say, if kindness is truly extinct in their species, then I need to witness it. But if there's even one person down there who helps without expectation, who shows genuine compassion to someone they believe is beneath them. She trailed off, looking back at the planet. Then everything we think we know about humanity is incomplete. And if you find no one? If you freeze on their streets or worse? Then I'll activate the emergency beacon and return home with valuable data about the failure of human empathy. She said it lightly, but they both knew the truth. Once she committed to this, her pride wouldn't let her quit early. It was a family trait, that stubborn determination. Their mother had built a commercial empire on it. Their father had lost one negotiating a trade deal that everyone except him knew was doomed. Cale sighed, a sound that seemed to deflate him slightly. You're going regardless of what I say. Yes. When? The shuttle leaves in 4 hours. I've already packed. The rain felt wrong. Not chemically, Lyria had checked the atmospheric composition before descent and found it within acceptable parameters for unprotected exposure. But the sensation of cold water soaking through fabric, clinging to skin, running down her neck in icy rivulets, this was entirely unlike the climate-controlled mist showers of home. This was aggressive. Rude, even. She huddled deeper into the alcove between two buildings, watching her third day on Earth dissolve into gray precipitation. The biomimetic field held perfectly, her ears convincingly human round beneath the projection, her features unremarkable enough to blend into the afoot traffic that splashed past without pause. She'd positioned herself on Morrison Street, a major pedestrian corridor in New Seattle's commercial district, with a battered cup placed hopefully in front of her crossed legs. So far, 17 people had kicked the cup. For accidentally, 13 with what appeared to be deliberate aim. Spare some change, she called out to a woman in a pristine business suit, the words feeling strange in her mouth. The woman's face performed an remarkable feat of muscular control, somehow looking both directly at Lyria and completely through her simultaneously. The umbrella never wavered. The footsteps never slowed. Lyria made a mental note, subject exhibits practiced ocular dismissal technique. Possible cultural conditioning to render lower-status individuals invisible. Then she remembered she had no way to record the note beyond memory. No devices. No data pads. Just her, the rain, and humanity's indifference. A teenager approached, headphones visible, lips moving to unheard music. Lyria tried again. Excuse me, could you? The boy stepped over her outstretched leg without breaking stride, so absorbed in his personal audio environment that she might as well have been a puddle. She watched him go, noting the expensive athletic shoes, the brand-name jacket, the casual wealth wrapped around someone barely old enough to appreciate it. You're in a bad spot, honey. The voice came from her left, and Lyria turned to find an elderly woman with a shopping cart full of plastic bags and mysterious bundles. Human, definitely, but living in circumstances similar to Lyria's manufactured poverty. The woman's face folded into 1,000 wrinkles when she smiled, revealing more gaps than teeth. Nobody stops here. Too busy. You want the park entrance or the transit station? Better guilt traffic. Guilt traffic? Lyria shifted, her legs numb from 3 hours of sitting. People coming and going, transitions. That's when they remember they got consciences. The woman settled onto the ground nearby with practiced ease, arranging her cart as a windbreak. Mornings are good. Folks feeling virtuous. Late nights, forget it. Everyone's tired and mean. I'm Dottie. I'm. Lyria hesitated, then went with the name she'd prepared. Lena. Fresh on the street, aren't you? Can tell by the shoes. Still got structure to them. Dottie gestured at Lyria's feet with something that might have been a fork. Give it 2 weeks, they'll be cardboard. Everything becomes cardboard eventually out here. Except my cart. My cart is eternal. She patted it affectionately. Found it behind a grocery store in 2031. That's 14 years of loyal service. Better than my ex-husband. Lyria found herself smiling despite the cold. How long have you been out here? 6 years, 2 months, 18 days. Dottie said it with the precision of someone who counted. Lost my apartment when the rent went up 300%. Apparently the neighborhood got revitalized, which is a fancy word for, we want different people. You. Recently. It wasn't technically a lie. Running from something or to something. The question caught Lyria off guard. On Celestia Prime, such personal inquiries required formal permission and appropriate social context. Here, apparently, sharing suffering created its own intimacy protocols. Just trying to understand something. Dottie laughed, a sound like gravel in a tumbler. Well, you picked a hell of a university. Tuition's a bitch but the education's comprehensive. She rummaged in one of her bags and produced a partially squashed sandwich wrapped in plastic. Here. You look hungry. Lyria stared at the offering. Her first genuine gift from a human, and it came from someone who by all metrics had nothing. I can't take your food. Sure you can. It's half of one sandwich, not the cure for cancer. I got 2, and my stomach ain't what it used to be anyway. Take it before I change my mind and throw it at that pigeon. She pointed at a bedraggled bird eyeing them from a nearby doorway. The coffee was terrible, but Jamie brought it anyway. Lyria had been sitting outside the Paramount building for 11 days when he first appeared, carrying 2 disposable cups and wearing a maintenance uniform with a name patch that read, Property Services. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down on the concrete beside her like they'd planned to meet there, like it was the most natural thing in the world to join someone the rest of humanity pretended didn't exist. Fair warning, he said, extending 1 cup. The machine on the 4th floor has been making revenge coffee since Tuesday. I think it knows we're planning to replace it. Lyria accepted the cup carefully, feeling the warmth through the thin paper. Revenge coffee? Yeah, you know. When appliances get mad and start sabotaging you. My toaster burns everything on one side now because I looked at a newer model online. Technology holds grudges. He sipped his own coffee and winced. See? Bitter and angry. This is what betrayal tastes like. She tried it. He wasn't wrong. The coffee tasted like someone had dissolved disappointment in hot water. It's distinctive. That's a polite word for awful. Jamie grinned, and she noticed he had a crooked front tooth that somehow made his whole face more trustworthy. But it's hot and caffeinated, which on a morning like this counts as luxury. I'm Jamie, by the way. I work in the building here. Superintendent, maintenance, occasional therapist to malfunctioning appliances. Lena. The name came easier now, after almost 2 weeks of using it. Nice to meet you, Lena. You picked a good spot. This alcove gets morning sun for about 40 minutes once the rain clears. Warmest piece of sidewalk on the block. He gestured at the building behind them. I've worked here 6 years. I know all the thermal dynamics of this corner. Very advanced knowledge. I could teach a class. They sat in silence for a moment, drinking their terrible coffee. Lyria had encountered dozens of humans by this point, had catalogued their reactions, their avoidances, their occasional performative charity. But Jamie's presence felt different. He wasn't here to fix her or film her or feel superior. He was just there. So what's your story? He asked, then immediately held up a hand. Wait, that's a terrible question. Nobody on the street wants to answer that. Let me try again. What's your opinion on pigeons? As a species, I mean. Because I have theories. Lyria blinked. Theories about pigeons? Absolutely. I think they're operating a sophisticated intelligence network. You see them everywhere, right? Always watching, always reporting back. To whom, I don't know. Maybe other pigeons. Maybe some kind of avian overlord. But they know things, Lena. They know things. Despite herself, despite the cold and the hunger and the accumulated weight of human indifference, Lyria laughed. That's ridiculous. Is it? Have you ever seen a baby pigeon? Jamie leaned forward conspiratorially. Nobody has. They don't exist. These birds just appear fully formed, ready to judge us and steal our French fries. It's suspicious. Where do you think they come from, then? Underground pigeon factories. Run by rats, probably. It's a whole ecosystem of urban creatures plotting against us. He finished his coffee and stood, stretching. Anyway, I've got to go yell at a furnace that's being dramatic. But same time tomorrow. I'll bring coffee. Maybe I'll threaten the machine first, see if that improves the quality. He left before Lyria could respond, walking back into the building with a casual wave. She sat there holding her empty cup, trying to process what had just happened. No money exchanged. No photos taken. No sermon delivered. Just conversation and terrible coffee and a theory about pigeons. The next morning, he returned. And the morning after that. By the end of the second week, their routine had solidified into something Lyria found herself anticipating. Jamie would appear around 7:30, 2 cups in hand, and sit for 20 or 30 minutes before his shift officially started. They talked about nothing important, the weather, the peculiarities of the building's residents, his ongoing battle with a toilet on the 9th floor that he swore was possessed. It flushes when nobody's in the room, he explained one morning. I've tested it. I'll stand outside, completely silent, and then, whoosh. Like it's taunting me. Like it knows. Have you considered calling a plumber? I am the plumber. Well, technically I'm the superintendent, but that includes plumbing. It's like being a doctor who's sick. Who do I call? Myself? I leave myself voicemails but I never call back. He shook his head sadly. The system has failed me. Lyria smiled around her coffee, which had actually improved after Jamie allegedly had a stern conversation with the machine. Maybe the toilet just has anxiety. Performance anxiety. In a bathroom. That's dark, Lena. But he was grinning. I like it. I'll try therapy instead of replacement parts. See if I can get it to open up about its feelings. On day 17, Jamie brought more than coffee. He arrived with his usual 2 cups but also a paper bag that he set down between them. So, full disclosure, he said, I accidentally made way too much dinner last night. By accidentally, I mean I'm terrible at measuring rice and always cook enough to feed a small army. By small army, I mean like 4 people, but still. Point is, I've got leftover chicken and rice, and it's going to go bad if someone doesn't eat it. He pushed the bag toward her. I'd really be doing me a favor. I hate wasting food. Makes me feel like my grandmother's ghost is judging me. Lyria looked at the bag, then at Jamie. His expression was carefully neutral, giving her space to accept or refuse without judgment. She opened it to find a proper container, not disposable, but actual reusable plastic. Filled with rice and chicken and vegetables that still smelled fresh. The night came fast and cold, winter announcing its intention with frost that turned the sidewalk into something treacherous and glittering. Lyria had moved to the transit station entrance on Jamie's advice, better foot traffic, more shelter from the wind that whipped through the urban corridors like it had a personal vendetta. She'd been there for 3 hours when the men appeared. There were 4 of them, young and loud with the particular confidence that came from numbers and alcohol. They surrounded a homeless man near the ticket machines, shoving him back and forth between them like a game, laughing as he tried to protect a small bundle of belongings. Come on, what you got? One of them said, grabbing at the bundle. Let's see what treasures the trash king has. Lyria stayed still, her survival instinct screaming at her to remain invisible. This was research, she reminded herself. Observation. She was here to document human behavior, not intervene. The biomimetic field would protect her identity, but it wouldn't protect her from actual physical harm. The homeless man, elderly, frail, fell when they shoved him harder. His head cracked against the concrete with a sound that made Lyria's stomach turn. She was reaching for the emergency beacon in her dental implant, preparing to abort the entire mission, when Jamie's voice cut through the noise. "Hey! Transit security is on their way. Cameras got everything." The four men turned. Jamie stood at the top of the station stairs, his phone held up, clearly recording. He wasn't particularly large or intimidating, still wearing his maintenance uniform, but something in his posture suggested he wasn't bluffing about the authorities. "Mind your business, old man," one of them said, but there was uncertainty creeping into his voice. "This is my business. I work in the building right there. These are my people." Jamie gestured at the scattered homeless individuals who'd been trying to sleep. "And you're trespassing on property I'm responsible for. So either leave now, or stick around and explain to the cops why you thought assaulting someone was a fun Friday night activity." For a moment, everything hung suspended. Lyria could see Jamie's hands shaking slightly, could see the calculation happening in the men's faces as they weighed pride against consequences. Then one of them spat on the ground and turned away. Whatever. Wasn't worth it anyway. They left, their bravado deflating as they went, throwing insults over their shoulders that fooled no one. Jamie waited until they disappeared around the corner before lowering his phone and hurrying to the fallen man. "You okay? That was a nasty hit." He helped the man sit up, checking his head with gentle hands. "No blood, that's good. But you might want to get checked out. There's a clinic on Madison that stays open late." The man mumbled something incomprehensible, still dazed. Jamie retrieved the scattered belongings. A sleeping bag, some clothes, a plastic bag full of aluminum cans, and carefully repacked them. Lyria approached slowly. Was transit security really coming? Jamie glanced up, and in the station's fluorescent lighting she could see the fear still present in his eyes, the adrenaline making his movements jerky. "No. I made that up. Never even called. I was just hoping they'd believe me long enough to leave." He laughed, but it sounded strained. "Probably the stupidest thing I've done all year, and I once tried to fix an electrical problem without turning off the breaker first. Spoiler alert, electricity is faster than human reaction time. You could have been hurt." "Yeah, well." He finished packing the man's belongings and stood, brushing off his knees. "So could he. So could you. So could any of these folks just trying to survive the night." He looked at her directly. "You think I could just walk past that? Go home, watch TV, pretend I didn't see it? Most people do. Most people are good at pretending. I'm not. It's a character flaw. My sister says I have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility for things that aren't my problem." He helped the injured man to his feet, supporting him with surprising strength. "I'm going to walk him to the clinic. You should probably find somewhere else to sleep tonight, just in case those idiots come back with reinforcements and a grudge." Lyria watched him guide the man toward the stairs, their progress slow but steady. Something in her chest felt tight, an emotion she couldn't quite name. On Celestia Prime, people hired services for intervention. You didn't personally involve yourself in violence or danger. You certainly didn't risk yourself for strangers who couldn't offer compensation. But Jamie had stood there with his shaking hands and his manufactured lie about security cameras, and he'd done it anyway. She waited at the station, ignoring her own advice about leaving, until she saw him return 40 minutes later. He looked tired, and there was a coffee stain on his uniform that hadn't been there before. "He's okay," Jamie said, collapsing onto the bench beside her. "Mild concussion, but they'll monitor him overnight. Clinic's good like that. One of the docs there actually gives a damn." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I need to learn to walk away from things. My sister's right. I'm going to get myself killed one day being stupid and idealistic. Your sister sounds practical. She's dying, so she's earned the right to be practical about everything. He said it casually, like commenting on the weather, then seemed to realize what he'd said. Sorry, that was dark. I don't usually lead with the tragedy. Bad form. Lyria went very still. Dying. Cancer. Stage 4. We thought we caught it early, but it came back meaner and brought friends. Jamie leaned back against the bench, staring at the station ceiling. Treatment's expensive. Like, sell everything you own and it still won't be enough expensive. I've been working 2 jobs, the superintendent gig and overnight janitorial at a hospital, trying to save up for the new therapy her doctor recommended. It's experimental, not covered by insurance, and costs about the same as a small house. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He was quiet for a moment. Her name's Sarah. She's the smart one in the family. PhD in biology, used to work for one of those big biotech companies before she got sick. She's the one who should be out here saving people, not me. I just fix toilets and argue with appliances. You saved someone tonight. I annoyed some drunk idiots into leaving. Not exactly heroic. But he smiled slightly. Though I have to admit, the part where I pretended to be competent and authoritative was pretty good acting. I was terrified. My heart still racing. Feel this. He held out his hand, and Lyria could see the tremor in his fingers. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. His palm was warm, calloused from work. The roof of the Paramount building was technically off-limits, but Jamie had keys to everything and a superintendent's prerogative to ignore certain rules. Lyria stood at the edge, looking out over New Seattle's skyline as dawn painted the city in shades of amber and gray. Behind her, Jamie was trying to fix a malfunctioning air conditioning unit and losing the argument. I'm not saying you're possessed, he told the machine, but your behavior is consistent with demonic influence. Just consider that. Lyria turned, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd asked him to meet her up here, claiming she needed to show him something important. Now, facing the actual moment, every rehearsed speech evaporated from her mind. So this is where you come when you need to threaten appliances in private? It's where I come to think. Better view, fewer witnesses to my deteriorating sanity. He gave the unit a final kick that somehow made it start working, then walked over to join her. What's up? Your message sounded serious. Are you leaving? Because I understand if you need to move on. Winter's getting brutal. I'm not leaving. Not exactly. I need to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm insane. Lena, I talk to toilets. My threshold for insanity is pretty high. She took a breath, then reached up and deactivated the biomimetic field. The projection flickered and died, revealing her true features, identical to her human appearance except for the long, elegant ears that marked her as utterly and completely alien. Jamie stared. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Okay, he said finally. That's new. I'm not human. I'm Ilarian, from a civilization that's been watching Earth for decades. I came here to study human kindness, to see if compassion existed without expectation of reward. I disguised myself as homeless to test humanity at its most vulnerable. The words tumbled out faster than she intended. You weren't supposed to be the experiment. You were just supposed to be data. But then you kept bringing coffee and talking about pigeons and being genuinely kind when you had every reason not to be, and... Hold on. Jamie held up a hand, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been wonder. You're an alien. An actual alien. From space. Yes. And you came to Earth to pretend to be homeless? That's your alien mission. Not probing or conquering or stealing our water. We have plenty of water. Good to know Earth's water supply isn't in demand on the galactic market. He walked in a small circle, running both hands through his hair. Okay. Okay. This is fine. This is happening. My life has officially become a science fiction movie, which explains so much about the general weirdness I've been experiencing. He stopped, looking at her directly. Wait, if you're some kind of advanced alien, why are you telling me? Don't you have non-interference protocols or prime directives or whatever? I do. I did. But I can't just leave knowing what you're facing with Sarah. Lyria moved closer, urgency driving her forward. My people have medical technology that could cure her. Completely. Cellular regeneration therapy that would eliminate the cancer in days. And I have access to resources that would make the cost of your experimental treatment look like pocket change. Jamie went very still. You can save her. Yes. Just like that. Yes. Lyria pulled out a small device from her pocket, her emergency communicator, no longer relegated to dental implant status. I can have a medical team here within hours. They'd work discreetly, make it look like a sudden remission or misdiagnosis. Sarah would never have to know the truth if you don't want her to. And in exchange. Jamie's voice had gone flat, careful. What do you want? Because that kind of power, that kind of technology, nobody just gives that away for free. I don't want anything. Everyone wants something. I want you to let me help you the same way you helped me. No cameras, no audience, no transaction. Just. She struggled for the words. Just because you shouldn't have to lose your sister when I have the power to prevent it. Jamie turned away, walking to the roof's edge and gripping the railing hard enough that his knuckles went white. This is insane. This is actually insane. I'm on a roof with an alien who's offering to cure cancer with future technology, and the crazy part is I believe you. He laughed, high and slightly hysterical. Do your people also have therapy? Because I'm going to need so much therapy. Jamie. Why me? He turned back, and there were tears on his face. Out of everyone in this city, everyone on this planet, why did you stop and talk to me? Why did you decide I was worth this? Because you brought me coffee, Lyria said simply. Because you sat with me and made terrible jokes and treated me like a person when everyone else treated me like furniture. Because when you had every reason to walk past violence, you stood up anyway even though you were terrified. Because you gave me money you needed for Sarah's treatment. Because you're exactly the kind of human my entire civilization insisted didn't exist. I'm not special. I'm a superintendent who argues with appliances. You're someone who sees people others have decided are invisible. That's the rarest thing in any civilization. She stepped closer. Let me help. Please. Not as part of my experiment, not as data collection. As someone who cares about what happens to you. Jamie wiped his face with his sleeve, laughing weakly. This is the weirdest morning of my life, and I once woke up to find a raccoon in my bathtub. The raccoon was less surprising. He looked at the device in her hand. If you do this, if you save Sarah, what happens to you? Are you breaking alien law? Are you going to get in trouble? Probably. My people have rules about interference. But some rules are worth breaking. Your brother, Kale, right? The one you mentioned. What's he going to say? Lyria blinked. How do you remember his name? I mentioned him once, weeks ago. I pay attention. It's kind of my thing. Jamie moved closer, examining her ears with unabashed curiosity. Can I? She nodded, and he gently touched one ear, his expression full of childlike wonder. This is so cool. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, and that includes the time I accidentally fixed an elevator just by yelling at it. He dropped his hand. Okay. Yes. Save Sarah. Break your alien rules. I'll deal with the consequences, the explanations, whatever comes next. Just please save my sister. Lyria activated the communicator, speaking rapidly in her own language. The response was immediate. A medical extraction team would arrive within 3 hours, prepared for discreet intervention. She provided Sarah's location, her medical details as Jamie relayed them, everything necessary for the operation. Done, she said, switching back to English. They'll handle everything. By tomorrow, Sarah will be cancer-free. Jamie sat down on the roof, looking dazed. I need to tell her something. She's going to have questions. Medical miracles don't just happen. Tell her you met someone with connections. It's not entirely untrue. Lyria sat beside him. Or tell her the truth. That's your choice. The truth. He laughed again. Hey Sarah, good news, aliens exist and one of them fixed your cancer because I was nice to her when she was pretending to be homeless. She'll have me committed. They sat in silence as the sun continued its climb, warming the cold rooftop. Around them, the city woke to another day of ordinary human chaos, traffic and commerce and a million small dramas playing out in buildings and streets below. What happens now? Jamie asked finally. Do you go home? Back to your space station? Eventually. I have to file my report, face whatever disciplinary action comes from breaking protocol. But mostly I have to tell my people that they were wrong. Humans aren't just primitive creatures operating on self-interest. You're messy and complicated and capable of extraordinary kindness even when it costs you everything. We're also capable of extraordinary stupidity. Remember the pigeon conspiracy. I stand by that theory. It's well reasoned. Jamie smiled, then grew serious. Thank you. For trusting me. For caring. For being weird enough to run an experiment that involved living on the streets just to prove a point about kindness. Thank you for passing a test you didn't know you were taking. For being exactly who you are, even when it's difficult. Lyria reactivated her biomimetic field, her ears disappearing back into human roundness. I should maintain